Okay, so I can off, or I can just remove the whole of this, and then I load those raster again. Okay, now the possible ways where you can add your raster. Raster always serve as a base map, right? Just a guide for you. You understand? Just a base map guiding you on what to do when you are using your shapefile, possibly showing you a boundaries from the satellite image, or possibly an external pictures that you want to add, maybe as your base map. Okay, you can add a lot of data. If you go, maybe you're talking about remote sensing data now, you talk about maybe calculating all the slope, the topography, or possibly you can also generate your contour map, and you can add it as a base map for you to actually do some certain things or certain analysis that you want to do. Okay, so now how did I add my raster? Now, one way that we have been adding raster since is clicking our browse and then use our SY ties, and then we click on the Google map and then we drag and drop. Okay, this is one way that we have been doing it. Reason because we are getting it from the satellite. We are getting it from the internet. Okay, but let's assume you have your raster, possibly an orthophoto or a particular image that you want to work with that is already in your system. Okay, you don't need to follow this process again because you have already, possibly you have extracted them and then you have it in your system. Okay, so how do I do that? Now, I'll go back to my browser and then I off this. Okay, possibly I can even remove this. Okay, because I don't need them again. So how did I add my raster? The same thing, you go to your layer and then add layer. Now in this case, now instead of clicking add vector layer, now you now click on add raster layer, right? I click on add raster layer. It's showing that it's on raster here. This shape or this icon here is a raster icon, okay? So I'll click on browse, all right, and then I'll go to where I have some raster images. So I'll go to my downloads. Under my downloads, and then I have this background image BG, and then under my image, I have some images here. We have 3D extrude. So if I click on this 3D extrude, now let's assume you have you have your 3D, maybe you model your 3D from a different environment and then you want to bring it, maybe based on the data that you are producing, or based on the presentation that you want to do, or based on the visualization that you want to produce, you can click, but mind you, it's not a georeference file, right? Okay, so I'll click on it and then I'll click OK, and then I'll click add, and then I close. So you see, we have added it to this environment. So as you can see, we have our 3D added here. So the same thing, if you model your building and then you want to bring it into this environment to actually show some things, possibly if it is not, you are not looking at the location this time around, okay? You just want to actually demonstrate some certain things. Then at that point, you can create possibly your polygon and then digitize polygon on top of this building that you are seeing here, or top of this structure you are seeing here. And then you can use your identifier tools. If you remember, you use identifier tools to visualize every information that is on any particular layer. Okay. All right. So this is one way that you can bring your raster in. Okay. I click and then I can remove this raster, right? I don't need them. I'll go back again and then I'll go to add layer and then add raster. I browse to a location. It's already automatically take me to the same location. So I have other data that I might like to add, possibly a heat shield. Okay. Let me use a hue shade. Let me use this, a hue shade. Open. And then I click add. I close. So you see, this is a hue shade data. What it means by hue shade is showing slope like mountains, like how some certain places rise up, while some person says the topography of a place, yes, the topography of a particular locations, okay, is actually different from a contour map, right? But mind you, this is not a georeference data, as I said, right? If it is georeference data, if you load it, it will fall at the right position. Even when you own a satellite image, it will fall at the right position. But our concern is not actually the georeference data here, because mostly what we normally use as our georeference data or base map is actually our Google Earth or Google Map, okay? Except if you have an organization that go and possibly capture their own image by themselves, and then they load it into their system for them to be using it. Then you can go there and load it yourself. Okay. Now, if you look at it, I can double click on this raster image and then possibly do some change of color. You see grid band, that is color changing. I can click, this is black, black to white, white to black. And then under the single brand, I can put it on multi band color. And then from there, let me see. Is that okay? From there, sorry. Okay, sorry, it has so you see, you can actually manipulate the color of your brand itself. Okay, different bands, you can change the colors, you understand? So the same thing, you can off and on. Okay, you can off and on any of those layers. Okay. Now I talk about the other day I talk about processing tools, right? Where you can maybe do selections and all that. So the same thing, if you, sorry, the same thing, you can actually add under your processing box here. We have processing here. You can type raster and then see different options of what you can do with raster. Raster, all right. So now, if I increase this, raster layer histogram is histogram, raster calculators, raster layer statistics, raster layer unique, you understand? So these are different analysis you can run with raster, okay? But mostly this is not a GIS work, this is remote sensing, okay? This is remote sensing work, because when you talk about extracting information from the satellite image, there are remote sensing job, like extracting information from what they call it, a raster image, okay? Because those images are not actually vectors, right? They are not actually vectors, right? And they are raster. So extracting those things now is actually a remote sensing or possibly a geotechnical. You understand? Those are some of the things where you can maybe generate a lot of other information from raster's image. Okay. So I don't know if you have any question on this, how you can load your raster. Okay. This is a simple way on how you can add the raster. As I said, you go to your add layer, and then we have been using add vector, but this time around we use add raster. And then you browse to the location where your raster is, and then you can look for any raster image that you want to add. All those images you have here, you remind you they are not georeference, okay? They are not georeference data, okay? So you can add your raster like this. Possibly, if it is georeference, you can go ahead and digitize, possibly bring out the road. Now, that is to say you are converting or polygonize. If you remember from the beginning of this course, we talk about data conversion, where you can convert a raster data to a shapefile data, okay? Which is now, if you want to convert now, just for me to create a line and then digitize this road, If I have this road in my vector now, I've already converted the information in this raster data to a vector data now. Okay, that is polygonization in GIS. Okay, so is there any question? Because today we talk about a data source and then loading rasters image. That is, if you look at our first content, that is what we're supposed to do today. Data source, display raster data, and working with images. Okay, so and we have covered these three course modules. So is there any question? Is there any confusion? Because we have some time to actually attend to questions today.